Hi, I'm Justin Jensen, and welcome to my channel. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and may fall again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. Teddy Roosevelt. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me. Today is a members only live. I definitely owe it to my members who support me every single month, and I am very appreciative. However, you can always watch the live stream. You just can't comment within the chat there. So I just wanted to give my members something, I mean, a lot of channels don't end up doing really anything, to be honest with you. And I know a lot of people just want to be members just to support the creator. And for that, I appreciate, but I still want to give something back to you. So thank you so much. Today, we are going to be talking about Havana Syndrome. And it's a very interesting, I don't know if phenomenon is the right term for it. Thank you, Jess. Appreciate it. Good to see everyone. But it's something interesting that is happening within our government personnel. And I think we should take a look at it. And it kind of begs the question, could this happen to us in the future? Right now, it is targeting, um, like I said, government employees, even around the White House. And it's scary that this is happening to them. But um, this technology developed in the 70s. However, um, it was a very, it was much bigger. The machine that they used um, back in the 60s and 70s, whenever it was created, now it's the size of like a scanner or a laptop. And a lot of people haven't heard of it. And that's what, I want to get, to tell people. I'm going to do more of things that maybe a lot of people don't know. But this started triggering our government personnel back in 2016 is when it started. And the reason it is called Havana Syndrome in the first place is it first started happening in Havana, Cuba. And so that's where it coined its name, Havana Syndrome. So I'm going to show you guys a video, and then we're going to talk about it, because obviously we don't want this happening to our government officials. Um, it mainly happened abroad whenever they were, in a different country. But now there's a 60 minutes, and I implore you to please watch it. It is on YouTube. It was targeting people that literally worked in the White House every single day. And this can cause very long-term damage. And there's even children of personnel, government personnel, that has been targeted. So first, I'm going to show you guys a video. I'm going to have to stop it every few seconds because that's the way the world works. But I'll comment and we'll get it started here. So
sharing his struggles.
bear with me 1 second. Okay. There we go. Maybe. I think I can.
With a mysterious illness that first affected federal employees stationed in Cuba in 2016. The U.S. Embassy staff there complained of symptoms consistent with so-called Havana Syndrome. Those include headaches, fatigue, and cognitive difficulties. There have been at least 130 suspected cases. Some go back over a decade, and there has been a recent spike in cases since initial reports. And CBS News has learned that they often occur near...
Hold on, guys. I'm so sorry. I've got to fix something.
Sharing his struggles with a mysterious illness that first affected federal employees stationed in Cuba in 2016. The U.S. Embassy staff there complained of symptoms consistent with so-called Havana Syndrome. Those include headaches, fatigue, and cognitive difficulties. There have been at least 130 suspected cases. Some go back over a decade, and there has been a recent spike in cases since initial reports. And CBS News has learned that they often occur near active Russian operations. Catherine Harris takes a closer look. This is an active war against...
So first of all, this is it's not this is not any, and I want to make this very clear. This is not targeting any type of political entity. It's not targeting Democrats. It's not targeting Republicans. It is targeting both. And I can show you guys the reports that the last couple presidents have ordered. There'll be an inquiry on this. So just take a look at this and watch.
Against U.S. officials.
A seasoned CIA officer, Mark Polymeropoulos, ran clandestine operations across Europe and Asia. So when he traveled to Moscow in 2017, the watching eyes of Russian intelligence did not faze him.
So first of all, who they think is doing this is Russians. Now, we don't know 100% if this is Russians, but it's most likely is. There's not very many people with this technology. One is Russian. The second is China. And the third thing, what is MSM? I don't know what that is, but okay, Julie. And the third one is what is it? South Korea or North Korea? North Korea.
In my hotel room, I go to the gym. The guy in a black trench coat comes down and checks on me down there. And so not unexpected, part of the job.
Then, in his hotel room, the trip took a dangerous turn.
I woke up in the middle of the night because I had this incredible case of vertigo. It felt almost as if I was in some kind of carnival ride. And I'll tell you.
Oh, well, then she should look at the I've got the what is it, I can't even think right now.
Captain, I spent years in war zones of Iraq and Afghanistan. I put my life on the line. This was the most terrifying experience of my life. I had no control.
National Academies
Sorry.
of Sciences recently found the most plausible explanation was pulsed radio frequency energy. There are no public images of the alleged device. A knowledgeable source told CBS News the technology behind this Russian-made microwave generator from the 90s is likely similar to today's.
So this is the older device that they used to shoot out. And yeah, sorry, I messed up the volume there. But now it is much smaller device, and this is not the, I mean, it technically may be the mainstream media. However, every American has the right to use the Fair Use Act, and you can pull these, which I will show you later. Is Molly live? I swear to God, I'll kick her ass. I'm just kidding, but
Smaller mobile units. In recent months, 2 suspected cases were reported near the White House.
This is clearly an escalation.
Republican Senator Susan Collins authored legislation that gets victims medical and financial support.
This bill will provide much needed assistance to the employees of the intelligence community, the State Department, and other federal agencies.
In a moment of rare bipartisanship, the Senate passed the bill unanimously last week.
Is Russia responsible? Russia is certainly a likely suspect. President Biden should send an unmistakable message to the Russians that if they are behind these attacks, they must stop them immediately. We have to have full cooperation from the Russians, or they must be made to pay a price.
Still unable to concentrate for more than a few hours at a time, Mark made the hard decision to retire from the agency he loves.
Who feels safe to serve now overseas with this happening? My contention is the Russians, but whatever adversary is doing this certainly has not seen anything from the U.S. government that's telling them to stop.
Catherine Harris is joining us now from Washington to talk more about this story. Catherine, you spoke to Professor David Relman, the chairman of the National Academies of Sciences Committee, which is investigating the Havana Syndrome and the potential technology. You talked to him about the potential technology being used in these attacks. I want to play a little of that sound.
So in its simplest terms, is this mechanism crude, or does it have to be pretty sophisticated to injure somebody?
So you're right. Not just any pulsed microwave energy would be expected to cause these kinds of health effects. Why? Because if the frequency is too high, it doesn't penetrate the skull, and instead just causes heating of the skin, burning. And these people didn't feel burning. On the other hand, if the frequency is low, it goes right through the head. So you have got to adjust these various features of the energy so that it gets into the head, doesn't go completely through, and also sets up these little pressure waves.
So it's a very specific technology, and I'll show you something kind of similar. Hey, Miss Fletcher, good to see you. No, it's fine, Haley. It's a very specific type of technology. It can't be too much, it can't be too little, because if it's too much, it just goes literally through the head. And if it's not enough, it goes, it won't go into the head. And these people, I'll show you some like CAT scans and stuff, because it's messing up their brain. And these particularly like CIA and FBI workers are they're having to retire. And it's very worrying. Who's to say that somebody can't get something like this in the future? And you'll never be able to prove who did it to the person. Right now it's government individuals, but what happens if and when it comes to regular humans, regular folk?
You know, I also thought, Catherine, is obviously it's only affecting people in these specific locations. So, the technology has the ability to zoom in, for lack of a better word, on certain people as opposed to, affecting people who may be walking on the street or you maybe work at a coffee shop next door or something like that. What more did you learn from Dr. Relman about the technology behind these direct energy attacks?
Well, the key word there, Anne-Marie, is directed energy attacks. So based on our reporting here at CBS News, what we learned is that it really takes a special energy recipe to cause the kind of lasting brain damage in U.S. personnel that they're seeing among people at the CIA, the State Department, and the Defense Department. It's not a situation where you can just rock up to a location with a very small device and flip the on switch. It has to be exactly calibrated, or you won't get the effect that Professor Relman described. You'll get what amounts to a near miss. You'll get burning skin, or the energy will go through one side of the skull and out the other. It won't be that perfect frequency, sort of fine tuning that sets up this wave effect in the brain that they believe is what causes these really debilitating effects.
It's a type of, for lack of a better word, microwave. It's a type of microwave. Yeah, if you guys could hit the thumbs up, I'd appreciate it.
So, Catherine, Dr. Relman also spoke to you about what this directed energy is and what it does to the brain. Let me play some of that sound.
There are some scientists here in the United States that spoke to us about how pulse radio
I'm
frequency
live.
energy affects cells in the brain. What it does is, when these pulses arrive, it heats up the cell very quickly. But because the pulse is just exceedingly brief, the cell cools down again very quickly. And this rapid heating and cooling creates little pressure waves.
So what more did Professor Relman tell you about directed energy and how it might cause brain damage? I can't imagine what this former CIA operative is going through.
Well, this is really a case where you got to put on your
Former CIA. And I think in the report, it's been over 1,000 government employees.
for science.
A couple of them have been literally at the building, like right beside the White House, that this has happened. And it's a 60 minutes piece. I think it aired the beginning of this year or sometimes last year. It's been pretty recent.
To understand the physics of what's going on, but to break it down in its simplest terms, everything has an energy wave. And the theory is that a device is being created that can completely mimic these energy waves that exist in your brain. And once it's able to do that, it has this pulsing energy, and cells heat up really quickly, and then they cool down really quickly. And that sets up another wave effect that bounces off inside the bone of your skull. So it's almost like what one scientist described to us as an
Thank you,
immaculate
Sepsis.
concussion.
Thank
you
you,
can't
honey.
see that it happened, but you know that there is lasting brain damage as a result.
Man, this is like ripped from the pages of some sci-fi story. Gosh, I'm remembering, and Vlad, you're always sort of into sci-fi stuff, but I just sort of have images of the Star Trek crew, beaming down and getting hit by this invisible wave and not knowing what it is, and it almost seems so similar. Last week, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that the U.S. is, at this point, still does not know who is causing these incidents. Obviously, there are fingers being pointed at Russia. Senator Collins said Russia is the likely suspect. Is the U.S. looking at any other countries, though, and how is the government tracking these events?
Well, officially, the U.S. government is looking at a number of entities, but privately, the country that you hear the most is Russian intelligence, in part because we know through our reporting and declassified records that Russia has really been a pioneer in this directed energy microwave.
So you think about, the Cuban Missile Crisis, right, that happened in, was it the 50s or 60s? And it was during Kennedy, I can tell you that. Russia was right on our doorstep in Cuba, 90 miles away, which is all, nothing, 90 miles. And this originally started, as far as our government employees in 2016 in Cuba. So Russia has always had a good standing relationship with Cuba because they're on our back door, and we haven't had such a great relationship with Cuba. So Russia definitely does. So in my opinion, it is Russia.
Devices. We have an image of one of these devices that was created in the 90s. You see it there. It's very large and it's very crude looking. But what we
And you see, like that right there, you're not going to be able to carry it around. It beams very specific.
know now is that the technology behind smaller models, which we understand to be about the size of a desktop scanner, is really identical to those older versions. So on the one hand, you have all of this intelligence that points to Russia. We know through our reporting that many of the Defense Department employees who were affected, it happened near active Russian operations. And then you add to that the Russians have really been pioneering this technology for decades. And to be clear, we know of some cases that go back 20 years. So it's the spike or the cluster of recent cases, which certainly has everybody's attention and a real sense of urgency within the U.S. government.
Man, Catherine, your reporting is this has been such a fascinating story, and I really feel for it's been fascinating, and I really feel for the former diplomat who found himself subjected to this and had to spend years suffering and convincing some of the top doctors in this country that this is legitimate. And I hope he finds some peace and some kind of relief.
So, a lot of doctors didn't believe that this was going on. Even some doctors thought, because they hear a sound within their head, and one government doctor even said it was some type of cicada. It's so interesting. Now, let me show you another technology that exists. Our government has it. Bear with me 1 second.
The active denial system.
This is called the active denial system, and this is a non-lethal deterrent to keep, I guess, bad people away. So this is similar to what is happening, but this, the one that is happening to our government officials, it actually goes in the body and creates damage. This one doesn't. It just heats up the skin.
Yes. It's designed to incapacitate enemy combatants with an unnerving, non-lethal sensation of intense heat. Watch as the ray silently strikes and scatters the crowd.
Now, like these, there's like crazy people and in groups and stuff, they can do this. So watch them. These are actors. They're testing this out.
The active denial system has three great characteristics. First of all, it's safe. Second, it's effective. And third, it has a tremendous range compared to the other non-lethal weapons that today's warfighter has.
This is the heart of this 100 kilowatt transmitter. This is the gyrotron. 200 kilowatts of electricity is fed in, and 100 kilowatts of radio frequency.
Amy, that's exactly what I'm afraid of.
It comes out. That millimeter wave energy comes out an aperture underneath the main reflector, hits the subreflector, which illuminates that main reflector and sends a roughly antenna-sized beam downrange. Those holes that you see in the antenna are for the cameras and other visual equipment that the operator uses so that he knows exactly where that beam is going.
It's operated by a joystick. The operator looks into the console, sees exactly what that antenna is aimed at. He moves the joystick left, the antenna slews to the left, same way to the right. Then when there's an individual who's identified as a troublemaker, he has a cursor. He can put that cursor on that individual, pull the trigger that's on the joystick, and the energy is sent downrange at the speed of light.
The electromagnetic radiation released by the active denial system is similar to the microwaves in your microwave oven, in that it causes the water molecules in the target to become excited and heat up. But that's where the similarity ends. The ADS is designed to heat only the very surface of the skin. It does this by outputting only the carefully chosen radio wave frequency of 95 gigahertz. Even though it can easily penetrate clothing, the ADS generates a much shorter and safer wavelength of radio waves than those used in microwave ovens.
The active denial system millimeter wave directed energy beam reaches 1/64th of an inch into human skin.
1/64th inch of human skin. So it's supposed to just do the first layers of the skin, and it creates an uncomfortableness. Now, this is supposed to not create damage, unlike the ones that, they're targeting the government with.
So that is the most outermost layer of the skin, roughly equivalent to about 3 sheets of notebook paper. It is essentially affecting the pain nerves in the outermost layer of the skin. Heating them up can cause an immediate repel effect.
Even these stoic servicemen, aware of what's about to happen,
Engage.
can't help but flinch when they feel the heat.
This is the first time I've experienced the beam from the active denial system, and it feels like an intense warmth feeling, kind of similar to opening a very hot oven door, and it's a compelling feeling that you want to get out of the way of this beam. If you were not expecting this, it would definitely shock you and make you want to move.
Watch this, these guys.
The ADS
It's like state troopers and stuff doing that. Oh, Miss Fletcher, did you have a baby? Do you have a baby?
represents just the latest effort to devise an effective ray weapon.
Okay, so there's that. So it's interesting, interesting stuff. I will drop, if anybody is interested in reading any of these reports, that I'll drop some links here. I believe China used a sound type device that humans can't hear, but does tremendous damage. I remember a Russian woman and a few others at a hotel after a meeting. I'm not quite sure. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, where's my stuff? My main thing is I just want, people to take notice of this and be able to do the research themselves so other people will know, because we do not want this getting in, other people's dangerous people's hands for civilians like us, and then you have just, horrible headaches and you're never the same again, making these people retire. This is the actual report, or one of the actual reports. And most people who are attacked with Havana syndrome complain of severe head pressure, disorientation, nausea, headache, vestibular disturbances, auditory symptoms, and visual changes. The secondary phase has a distinct separate onset from the initial phase and includes at least one of the following symptoms: the cognitive deficits and the vestibular disturbance. A possible case was defined on onset of symptoms while in Cuba or within 2 weeks of returning from Cuba with a biphasic onset of symptoms that did not include the vestibular, whatever, disturbances or cognitive deficits in the secondary phase. Okay, so head pressure, disorientation, and all of that. Let's get to the. It talks about in late December 2016, a United States government employee serving in Havana, Cuba, first presented to their in-country embassy medical unit reporting multiple non-specific symptoms. Reported symptoms including the vestibular disturbances, vision changes, cognitive deficit, auditory symptoms, sleep impairment, and headaches. During early February 2017, a second person reported an unexplained onset of similar symptoms. Following the second report, the Department of State requested USG employees and eligible family members uh, report any unusual auditory or sensory events following an onset of symptoms to the in-country medical team. Additional USG employees reported similar unexplained symptoms. Some predate the onset of the original report. In response, DOS Bureau of Medical Services conducted initial clinical assessments of the USG employees and EFM reporting symptoms in country. Clinicians from the University of Miami were invited to initially examine affected persons in Havana, and they continued uh, to assist the self identified affected person who were medically evacuated to Miami, Florida. The University of Pennsylvania Penn evaluated and treated additional self-identified affected persons. In June 2018, the National Institute of Health began systematically evaluating self-identified persons who might have previously sought care at the UM Penn or both. Where was that at? And it's got all the graphs and so this is 95 persons records reviewed, 73 reported symptoms while in Cuba or within 2 weeks of leaving. 22 did not meet the criteria. 65 reported symptoms with no alternative explanation. 8 more did not meet the criteria. 50 reported 2 or less symptoms with no alternative explanation. 15 did not meet the criteria. And then it goes just on and on. And we are still trying to figure this out, although I think we have a better understanding of what is going on. And then it shows obviously the references. It's in medical journals, it's in brain traumatic, and this is what's causing it is brain traumatic injury without any sort of trauma. If you have a traumatic brain injury, you're looking for some trauma to be, like some sort of accident, some sort of fall. But sepsis, I'll tell you, this is literally affecting people, government officials, literally walking, like, I forget the building, what it's called. I think it's called the Eisenhower building that is right beside the White House. They walk down the steps and the White House is like right there. They just walk right. And it's a secured area. And this woman was walking down the steps and she felt this side of her head, like this buzzing and stuff. And she's like, she was afraid she was going to fall down the steps. And the 60 Minutes interview is really a great thing. Let me see here. What else? I'm going to drop a few more links. That way you guys can look at it. My main goal for this was I just want people to understand it, to be aware. And, if something like this ever happens, they say, try not to freeze up during this when it's happening to you, because the ray is, they have it locked in on you at that specific spot, and you gotta have enough ability to know to move so the ray doesn't the ray is off of you. And it is just, you'll hear a very strange sound. This has happened in the middle of the night at government officials' house when, they have literally children in their home. Hotels that the authorities are staying. And one guy that had worked for, I think it was the CIA, he said he saw like a white van outside when he looked outside. But that's like the only time that, was ever, anything was really ever spotted. This is a great article. This one right here I'm going to drop, that I think, yes, it does. It kind of puts you in the mind of cicadas when you hear that. Yes. That's what it kind of puts you in the mind of. And it's just so scary that, our technology is so great now that these things are becoming such, smaller and smaller. Here's kind of like, an illustration, someone just laying in their bed and this beam shoots. It often started with the sound of that people struggle to describe. A buzzing, a grinding metal, a piercing squeal was the best they could manage. Here, let me listen to this.
One woman described a low hum and intense pressure in her skull. Another felt a pulse of pain. Those who did not hear a sound felt heat or pressure. But for those who heard the sound, covering their ears made no difference. Some of the people who experienced the syndrome were left with dizziness and fatigue for months. Havana Syndrome first emerged in Cuba in 2016. The first cases were CIA officers, which meant they were kept secret. But eventually, word got out and anxiety spread. 26 personnel and family members would report a wide variety of symptoms. There were whispers that some colleagues thought sufferers were crazy and it was all in the mind. 5 years on, reports now number in the hundreds and, the BBC has been told, span every continent, leaving a real impact on the US's ability to operate overseas. Uncovering the truth has now become a top US national security priority, one that an official has described as the most difficult intelligence challenge they have ever faced. Hard evidence has been elusive, making the syndrome a battleground for competing theories. Some see it as a psychological illness, others a secret weapon. But a growing trail of evidence has focused on microwaves as the most likely culprit. In 2015, diplomatic relations between the US and Cuba were restored after decades of hostility. But within 2 years, Havana Syndrome almost shut the embassy down, as staff were withdrawn because of concerns for their welfare. Initially, there was speculation that the Cuban government or a hardline faction opposed to improving relations might be responsible, having deployed some kind of sonic weapon. Cuba's security services, after all, had been nervous about an influx of US personnel and kept a tight grip on the capital. That theory would fade as cases spread around the world. When James Lynn, a professor at But recently, another possibility has come into the frame, one whose roots lay in the darker recesses of the Cold War, and a place where science, medicine, espionage, and geopolitics collide. When James Lynn, a professor at the University of Illinois, read the first reports about the mysterious sounds in Havana, he immediately suspected that microwaves were responsible. His belief was based not just on theoretical research, but first-hand experience. Decades earlier, he had heard the sounds himself. Since its emergence around World War II, there had been reports of people being able to hear something when a nearby radar was switched on and began sending microwaves into the sky. This was even though there was no external noise. In 1961, a paper by Dr. Alan Fry argued the sounds were caused by microwaves interacting with the nervous system, leading to the term the Fry effect. But the exact causes and implications remained unclear. Radio 4, Crossing Continents. The mystery of Havana Syndrome. In the 1970s, Professor Lynn set to work conducting his experiments at the University of Washington. He sat on a wooden chair in a small room lined with absorbent materials, an antenna aimed at the back of his head. In his hand he held a light switch. Outside, a colleague sent pulses of microwaves through the antenna at random intervals. If Professor Lynn heard a sound, he pressed the switch. A single pulse sounded like a zip or a clicking finger. A series of pulses like a bird chirping. They were produced in his head rather than as sound waves coming from outside. Professor Lynn believed the energy was absorbed by the soft brain tissue and converted to a pressure wave moving inside the head, which was interpreted by the brain as sound. This occurred when high-power microwaves were delivered as pulses rather than in the low-power continuous form you get from a modern microwave oven or other devices. Professor Lynn recalls that he was careful not to dial it up too high. "I did not want to have my brain damaged," he told the BBC. In 1978, he found he was not alone in his interest, and received an unusual invitation to discuss his latest paper from a group of scientists who had been carrying out their own experiments.
So, yeah, it's just very interesting stuff, and I would implore you guys to look deeper into this and make up your own conclusion. To me, it's not a political thing whatsoever. It's just something that we all need to know. And, if somebody is going to harm you, it's one thing to be face to face with someone. It's another thing if you can't see them. You know what I mean? So if anybody wants to call in 307-228-4906. Yeah, it's crazy. Japanese whaler used LRAGs against the orgy. I used to be a part of what you can hear theirs on their TV. Whales war. Interesting, Haley. It is terrifying, just on. It is very terrifying, and as technology gets better, you don't want someone to have something the size of your cell phone that can destroy, parts of your brain and your loved ones. So that's all I got to say about that. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Tammy T. Thank you guys for being here. A lot of people don't know about this. I would really, really love for you guys to go watch the 60 Minutes interview. It's about 20 minutes long, I think. And some of the people from the Trump administration are on there, and they are literally crying that their lives have never been the same since, and my heart just really goes out to them. There's another who was worried sick about his kids. 973.
Hi, it's me again. Hi, Justin.
Hello, my love. How are you?
Hi, everybody. It's so scary. It's like you look at history, and I'm like, you can get a megalomaniac to get this in their hands.
That's what I'm saying, Amy. That's why I'm so worried.
I know, but I've been like, I don't know. Everybody doesn't want to talk about history. Like, just study history. Look at all the different countries and the wars that have gone through. They used to, all the genocides, like the Armenian genocide that that they did, and the Turkish did, and all the Holocaust and anything. What this, you don't even have to put them on a cattle. You can just round people up with this.
Yeah.
If you don't like their political ideology or or anything, you don't even have to, like some people even think that they made this hurricane, like you have people that think all this stuff is weather weaponization.
Right.
And everything, but I'm just saying that this seems to me that there's some real evil agenda behind this.
Yes.
And we have, and the humanity is getting, we have to stand up for humanity.
Yes.
And not controlling people with these devices. I don't like, what are they going to do? Bring it to a school one day and use it for the kids because they don't like what the kids are doing or saying? I just, this stuff has got to stop.
Yeah. It does.
It really is when you look at what's going on. I'm just everything is like ramped up now. What you're seeing, what's going on with anything that's going on in this world with all these. What are they going to do? They're going to maybe they're going to say somebody to control their brain. They're going to go and kill everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, get people to turn them on and like turn them into little robots. You don't know what if they're trying to experiment. What part of the brain can they tap into?
Yes.
Someone and get them to do something that's very dangerous. I don't know. Just people are going to say we're some tinfoil hat people, but
well, this is right here. You know what I mean? The Trump administration and the Biden administration have been on this. You know what I mean? So
I just think that they have to be more aggressive.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
I don't. Just like with the missing kids, I'm like, you want to put a chip in your kids so you know where they are, and all this stuff.
Right.
Like, as I said, you're going to get some cuckoo that's going to get their hands on this stuff and hurt us.
Yeah.
Because there are nut jobs out there. We had them all through history. Humanity.
Respectfully, anybody that's doing this now is a nut job.
I know. Well, I heard about this years ago. I followed a lot of stuff. Like I'm not one to watch television.
Right.
I really don't.
I don't even have television at my house. Like I don't even.
Have it, just background noise or whatever. Like watch a game show. I like watching quiz. It's good for I watch quiz shows.
Right.
It's good. I have my daughter listen. It's good for us to get some quiz, trivia or whatever. But the weather. I watch the Weather Channel. But as far as this stuff, it's just like something has got to give already. People would, and then people would say, "Oh, you're crazy." Even though it was on TV, you talk about this. People don't know about this.
That's it's
at all.
yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring this to people's attention.
Very
Um,
good you did, because like a lot, you know, you could, because a lot of like, you have to be, YouTube probably doesn't even want it being
no,
brought out, because
no,
who knows if, you know, they don't want a lot of stuff getting out. Some of these social media, big tech companies, they want to control us too,
yeah,
you know? And we have to go around it a different way to bring awareness. But I'm just thank you for doing this, because I did hear about this like a few years ago. I heard about this going
yeah,
on, and I don't know why nothing is being done about it. And in my opinion, I don't trust these countries that are communist, and I don't know why we're still
nope,
sending people to Cuba. When you go to Cuba, you know, if you know, they talk bad about the presidents here. If you go to Cuba and you talk bad about them, they'll put you in front of a firing
yeah,
squad.
yep,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And I don't know why people have to stop going to these countries that are harming us, that are bad for human rights,
yep,
that starve their people out, that loot their people of livelihood, of food, of filling their stomachs.
just a
It's
number.
a terrible thing. It's
Yes,
and for them to still be in that kind of oppression, you know, something's got to change. I don't know why. I'm just mad. I just don't know why they let this happen to this country, to that country of Cuba. It's terrible. You know, like can I talk a little bit more?
of course.
Like I know my mother has a friend. Her name is Raquel, and her family escaped Poland in the Holocaust. They fled to Cuba because no other countries were taking the Jews. So they went to Cuba, and then she was born. Raquel was born, and Raquel's family got wind of the communist revolution, and they had to flee to America. Unfortunately, she had cousins, but you know, it's like you have to look at all this history and why does this stuff keep happening? We have to, you know, I thought we said never again in these past genocides.
Yeah,
Why are we not? Why are we letting this happen? I know we want to be nice to people, but we have to really look at what is leading up to these problems
yes.
geopolitically and to save humanity. It's just unbelievable. I just don't know. I can go on and on.
No, I
You know,
understand. It's
you know,
very
very
scary.
very disturbing. You know, when you have children and you're concerned with, you know, what kind of world is there being left.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and and people are having kids. I'm like, now at this, like, I get worried. My daughter wants to have kids. I'm like, she's going to have kids. What kind of world is she going to bring children into?
I know.
It's just scary. You don't want to think about what it's going to be like in 20 years. And the kinds of things they're desensitizing us to,
Mm-hmm.
and what we're slowly willing to accept little increments of sickness.
Yes.
And we can't go there. We can't be boiled slowly in a pot. We have to get out of the pot already.
Yes.
You know,
It's like a frog in a boiling pot. You know, they don't realize they're being boiled until they're dead.
right. It's like slow approximation to, you know, doom, you know. But I don't know. I really thank you for bringing this up and covering this. I appreciate
No
it.
problem. This was something that I had to talk about. I just had to talk about.
Yeah, I
And
like that you did. That's very appreciated that you did that. Have a
thank
good
you.
day now.
You too, my dear. Appreciate you, Amy. Bye.
Take care.
You too. So yeah, guys, I would highly recommend you guys to look more into this. Go to that 60 Minutes interview. There's a lot of other things here on YouTube about this. 510.
Justice for all.
Hello.
What's up, Justin?
How are you
How
doing?
you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Hey, but you took the words right out of my mouth. It was like frogs in a boiling pot. It's so you don't send the waves to the point that they're like running away. You like just do it to the point that they're just being cooked indefinitely.
Yep.
Right? They think they're crazy. That's kind of like the idea of it. And when you think about like Cuba, that was unpopular when I think it was Obama that did that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was unpopular with the U.S.
Yes.
You know, that wasn't like something that was like, like let's embrace that, right?
Yeah.
which I didn't get at the time. I'm like going, you know what? That whole embargo and going back to the Kennedy, stuff like the Cuban Missile
Missile,
Crisis,
yeah.
it just seemed like it was just like way overblown. It was just like it reminded me of I don't know. It just seemed like something that was really wacky. It didn't make sense, right?
I agree. I mean, why do we do it with the, why are we allowing this communism and supporting this? It's like,
Allowing what?
pardon me?
You said
I mean, like the embargo and stuff, we're letting, Cuba is a communist country, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was, but
I'm not sure.
no, well,
I felt like when Obama kind of dropped the walls and we're like, we can go there and we can hang out. But it just seemed like, the Cuban cigar thing, you can't have it. It was illegal to have a Cuban cigar. Like, come on, bro.
Yeah.
It's like so, just way back in the days where it was like communism. Oh my God,
Yes.
Back in the day when it was like, it's just like sketchy, bro.
Yes.
So why didn't you bring this up in the first place?
I just thought people need to know about this. I mean, to me, it's very disturbing that, it always starts with someone and then it always spreads out, right? And you just don't want this to get in the, like, particularly, well, the government's hands or anybody, and just start happening to civilians.
Oh yeah, it for sure is. I mean, we saw it was on the back of a Humvee. I mean, the Humvee.
Well, no, the one on the Humvee, it's supposed to be like a non-lethal. Now, the one that is happening to the government officials, it is causing traumatic brain injury. And
that could be like from anywhere, really, right? I mean, it could be coming from like a satellite. Who knows where that's coming from, right?
yeah, I mean, they kind of know a little bit, like what it, like what the machine is, but they don't really know who is doing it. And
probably like, I mean, you would think that they would just like have a preventative measure, like having sensors on the building that detect these waves, so that that it's actually like a foreign, that it's not these people like tripping out. It's actually like a foreign thing, and you can like dissect exactly where it's coming from.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's what it seems like to me. It would be like the most basic thing to do.
Yeah. Whatever, it just needs, I mean, something needs to happen with this. We can't have, to me, it's not about what party you're in or who you vote. This is like, they passed something through Congress, and it was completely bipartisan. I guess the inquiry and passing some stuff regarding this. So, I'm glad that that's something America was at least able to come together on.
And what did that entail? How did that?
I really don't know, to be honest with you. It's been just in the last couple months that this has happened. So I've got the very long articles, and I actually dropped the links in the chat, and you can read them, but I haven't read all of them yet. So, but they're supposed to be doing something. What's that?
You know who I am?
Yeah.
Who I am?
Yes.
Okay, that's good enough. All right, man.
Okay.
Great subject. It intrigued me enough to talk, which
Well,
I don't normally do.
well,
Great job, bro.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye. Devious right now, it is only government officials. However, who knows? So yes, Molly has been blowing up my phone. So I am going to jump off here. I will be back later tonight on one of the two channels for sure. And we're going to be talking about something, true crime or just fun stuff on the other channel. So I will be back on one of the two. Thank you so much. This is a very short live, 1 hour, literally. And okay, thank you, Boshit. Thank you, or Bushit. Thank you so much. Love you all. God bless each and every one of you. Please, please look up more into this and tell people about it. Tell people about it. Very important. Thank you all. God bless. Bye bye.